Excellent. Well, hi, everybody. Welcome. My name's Rachel Weeks. Some of you know me and some of you don't. I've been working with Michelle now for about 6 months on HR Rebooted, and I've been really excited to get more engaged with the HR Rebels community. Michelle is taking a family day today up in New England. She's way up in New Hampshire. I think everybody knows that. We've had lots of snow. And her kids are on vacation this week. And so it's really great opportunity for them to take advantage of their favorite winter activity, snowmobiling. So Michelle is off in the frozen tundra today, enjoying that. And I'm trying to hold down the fort. So I look forward to today's conversation. It's nice to see familiar faces as well as some new ones. I'd like to officially, whoops, welcome today's guest, Rhiannon Albert. We're very excited to have her, and she's going to talk about how important it is for HR professionals to work together when you're going through major workforce transformations. So, in a nutshell, Rhiannon, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And I'm excited for this to be just a great discussion and hopefully a help, maybe some education and just open feedback, open dialogue. But I look forward to visiting with you guys today. So are we ready for me to kick off my slides? Rachel, are we good?
Yes, go ahead and share. Sorry, I
Awesome.
accidentally muted myself. Hey,
All
Brian and
right.
John, welcome.
Hey y'all, this is the first Rebels meeting I've been on in like 7 months, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, welcome back, Brian.
And I'm so happy it's yours, Rhiannon.
Oh, thank you.
Glad to.
Well, good. We're glad to have you. Um, so don't feel like you need to have your speakers muted because I want this to be interactive. But I want to start by kind of finding out what your roles are. Are you in the trenches, internal HR? Are you consultants yourself? Are you business partners to HR? Are you serving like in a marketing role, finance role? I'd love to hear you guys speak up, or you can utilize the chat, um, and Rachel can monitor those. But I'm curious to know, how you're joining us today and what your role is. Um, and then I also want to know if you guys have ever, if you are internal HR, if you've ever worked for or brought in an HR consultant to help assist your team. Um, or maybe you were hired to serve in that capacity. I'm just curious to know that. So feel free. Go ahead, John.
Yes, everything.
Yes.
Yes, everything. I am a consultant. I'm a fractional interim HR and C level HR and executive. I've brought in especially consultants when it comes to benefits
Mhm.
and international benefits.
Mhm.
I currently am a practicing head of HR for a small startup in the identity security field and have been an instructor for sure.
Cool. Love it. And then did you start your career internal
I did.
HR?
I did.
Great. So you've run
And
the
that
gamut.
includes Nordstrom, um, a conglomerate holding company, still in retail, Capital Land, multi-billion dollar companies. And at the end, I will just tell you all, I just determined I did not like or want to work in process driven, humongous organizations and have devoted myself to startup and emerging companies with a strong mission and a strong team play um, culture because it's exciting.
Mhm. Wonderful. I want to hear from others. Tell
We've got
me.
Oh, excuse me. We've got a couple in the chat.
Good.
We've got a couple of HR consultants, HR manager for Department of One, Sherry. Um, Dara started as internal, now doing interim and fractional. Brian's doing fractional. So we've got a good mix of people doing different things now, and it sounds like having done different things throughout your careers as well.
Yep. A lot of consultants on the call today. And, what do they say? There's 27 facets to HR. So, just like when John was talking us through his history and his background and what lights him up, it does not light all of us up, does it? No. So, that's why it's so cool to consider the idea of bringing in outside resources who specialize in the areas that you don't or that your leadership team doesn't, you know? So let's just kind of go into it with that. Um, this is why, well, where did my words go? Who knows? I really don't know what happened there. Maybe let's stop share and let's try this again because my words disappearing now that's a new one. Let's see. Words are still gone. Okay. Um,
Are you seeing them on the slides, but they're not showing up in the screen share?
Well, it looks like when I went back to my slides, it was doing a little it was wanting to do a little like blend in, blend out. I'm thinking that they're back. Okay.
Right.
Now,
Rolling
how?
with the punches. That's
Yes,
what HR professionals do every
always,
day.
right? Because
Don't we all?
change is a constant. So many of you know, I've spoke to this group before. I am a team of one, typically, but I have been as big as a team of five, depending on my client load and who I'm serving at the time. But I thought today, since I'm back to being a team of one, I'd just say, this is about my trusted HR, my business that I've owned for almost 7 years, and about me. It felt a little weird to say about us today because it really is just me. So, um, but I bring 23 years of experience in HR. My Trusted HR, my business was created out of a love for serving overwhelmed executives who wanted and needed actionable and sound direction. When I was in corporate, I prided myself in being that go-to HR person that executives would reach out to, even before my bosses or anybody else, to garner like, okay, where are we at? What do you think about this? They'd want to pick my brain and get a sense of, you know, future planning. And as I navigated my career, I really realized that that's where I really shine and the stuff that I really enjoy most. Because executives are so busy and HR teams are so busy, that's who I now serve is typically nationwide, multi-state companies, especially when they have a hole in their HR leadership team. Though those are typically the groups that I hop in and serve, although I can help anyone. So here I am almost 7 years later, and my trusted HR now guides nationwide clientele in countless industries. Um, I want to kind of talk about the fractional term because I think there's a lot of people who are really confused about it. I mean, even I, as a fractional, am sometimes like I'll call myself interim, um, or contract HR or on-demand HR because I see people glaze over a little bit because I don't know that they totally understand what fractional means. Um, it's not necessarily an extra set of hands, but more strategic than that. However, we see a lot of people popping up in the fractional realm and serving in very simplistic ways. Maybe they're just hopping in to help you create a handbook, or they're just hopping in to like help you finish this project. So I think it really does kind of run the gamut. So, uh, I think if you ever are looking to hire someone, that conversation about parameters, about setting those clear expectations is really critical because I think there is a lot of confusion in this space. And fractional does not necessarily mean the same thing to everyone. But as you guys know, Michelle Strasburger, the founder of this group, um, she is also a fractional HR leader and serves clients. So, there's a lot of us out there and many of us on the call. So I think it's really important to find out which of those 27 facets to HR, these people really specialize in, and if they're going to be able to drive your project forward or drive the work that you need done forward based on their expertise. Um, so that is just my little 2 cents there. But I provide this kind of, my two niches are the fractional on-demand interim HR leadership for multi-state companies. And then I'm also a workplace investigator. So I'm hired by a lot of employment attorneys to conduct thorough, neutral investigations for them so that they can continue to represent their clients. So those are the two pieces that I specialize in. But I work in everything from employee relations, safety, work comp, compliance, performance, policy, and then some. We're hired by business owners, executives, and employment attorneys, providing leadership, guidance, compliance, support, and hopefully peace of mind. So, um, one of the things I wanted to just kind of start with is like the reality of modern HR. I think many HR practitioners are expected to be strategic and learn to speak the language of the business. But at the same time, there's a lot of leaders out there who are expecting their HR staff to still get it all done, be operational, but also be strategic. And it's kind of hard to fit both of those in to the day to day, isn't it? So you're supposed to handle culture, train your leaders, make sure that they're doing everything they should be doing in the best way possible because they're the ones responsible for their employees, right? Mitigating compliance and all of the risks that come with that, leading any and all kinds of change, and getting it all done. But in reality, I think most HR teams are pretty understaffed typically. They're overextended. They might lack experience in a lot of these areas that they're expected to step up and handle. And a lot of times they're just expected to figure it out. And I know I've been there. Um, they sometimes leaders don't really care how you do it, but it just needs to get done so that it's not a headache on their plate. So, you know, just want to give you that takeaway that even smart and strong HR leaders have those moments where they need support. So, if you are supported by your leadership, then, it's really a wonderful gift to be able to be supported yourself, um, and maintain those, working relationships and your reputation while you're on the job trying to serve all of the various needs. And so this is where I wanted to do kind of a poll question with Rachel. Um, and what were we going to ask, Rachel? Do you have those questions in front of you?
Think we asked the first question, which was what type of HR role have you had? And we talked about that in the chat.
I think
And
I'm referring to question 3 and 4 from the ones that we discussed.
the questions that you sent, Rhiannon, or I sent
Yeah, the
two
ones
and
that
you
I
sent
asked,
two.
the ones that I asked you to create a poll for. They were just the 2 questions.
Right.
And
How
maybe
many?
we can just talk about them verbally.
Yep. How many of you have ever been handed a big work situation and thought, I really wish I had backup?
I'd say that's probably most of us.
Mhm.
Maybe you want to share some of those experiences?
Um, yes, I mean, for sure. So one of the ones was when I took over HR here in Florida of a large healthcare company, they'd already made the decision to transfer all of their payroll, all of their benefit systems, and everything like that. And I walked in and they said, "Do you think this is a good idea?" And I said, "Yes." And then within the first 2 weeks, we were starting of my arriving at the company, we were starting to do all the migrations and that kind of stuff. At the same time, I'm trying to get to know the company. So that would have been wonderful opportunity to have someone who actually understood not just benefits, but also from the US side of things, because this is my first US job. And that would have been a fantastic opportunity for me to bring someone in who had that knowledge and experience
Mhm.
already in hand, but that wasn't in the budget, unfortunately.
Right. And that's very common, right? We're told no because that's why I hired you,
Yes,
is
that's
for
correct.
you to do it. And again, back to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. And I had to sort out their absolutely horrible HR department at the same time. So, um, which was totally non-functional. So it was fun. I got it done.
Well, and that's a lead into the second question, which was what's the pushback? Besides, well, we hired you to do this. Okay. What else? What other headwinds do you face in those situations? Because we could brainstorm about how to help overcome them next time, right?
Mhm.
Well, I think if it's clear that it's something outside of what could be expected to be your level of expertise, that makes it a somewhat easier conversation. Although still, senior leaders can just say, "Well, sorry, you need to go and figure it out." Um, but not actually having the expertise, and that's sometimes difficult for us in HR to admit that I don't know much about that particular subject, because as you said, HR is extremely multifaceted.
Mhm.
Um, and my view as an argument is, well, do you want me to really concentrate on the things I understand and am good at and can help you with, or do you want me worrying about how to migrate a system, which is not really at the end of the day an HR thing. It's a
Correct.
systems issue, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll shut up now.
Can we at least partner with IT or
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, Yeah.
Yeah, and Dara gave another example. Dara, I don't know if you are able to come off mute, but just the ability to update skills and training for people when you have no team and you have no scope. That's a pretty generic challenge. So she had noted that in the comments.
Yes, very good point. Um, I have been personally threatened by executives saying, well, if you think you need help, then maybe I just need to terminate your assistant. So sometimes it comes with threats. Um, but I think budget is probably the biggest pushback that you're going to get, right? That's why I hired you, figure it out. And I don't think that, well, I don't even have to say I don't think that. I know that most executives just don't really give HR the respect that it truly deserves about just how multifaceted it really is, just how much is involved. Um, I don't think they truly realize just how many things are attached. So, um, obviously many of you know this, but pulling in those partnerships with marketing, with finance, with IT, because it we're a team, and when we can work together and utilize those other internal functions to help support an initiative, it really goes a long way. And then it obviously creates a lot more buy-in for the end product anyway, especially when you're rolling out a system that everybody's going to be utilizing. So, um, you know, more power to all of you. On goes the fight. But I do have one example of when I made a case to hire help, and it turned out to be a wonderful thing. But I was an HR director at the time, and we had a complaint filed with, I think, the Human Rights Commission, but it was a legal filing, and I panicked because I didn't know enough about it at that time. And so I knew that I had kind of a legal resource in a former boss. So I reached out to her and let her know that I was worried for our company and felt like we were in some pretty hot water. And she knew exactly what to do. So I turned to my supervisors and mapped out the risk factors that we were really dealing with. If this goes sideways, this could look like X dollars in damages. This could also hurt our reputation. This would also affect our ability to recruit great talent in the future. I mapped it out and made a case for bringing her in and letting her handle um, that for us. And the highlight to all of that was just, I mean, it was my dream to just get um help, obviously mitigate our pain, make that go away, but it also allowed us to work closely together. I got to learn and kind of shadow. And the leadership team was able to sit down and ask her questions, which we were all learning, right? So everybody in the end was better for it, and we learned a ton. And the whole, I don't know, we were just able to get back on track that much faster. It was very efficient and educational. So that was one of kind of my takeaways from a boss saying yes to realizing the risk and helping us navigate it with expertise instead of just guessing. So, does anybody else have anything to share before we go on? Okay, nothing in the chat, Rachel?
Nope, we're good.
Okay, sweet. All right. So, in my experience, what I would say is HR should consider hiring support when there's any kind of internal neutrality that is being questioned. So, anytime that an employee might say, I don't think it's fair, or they have some kind of an issue. I think that's listed later, like multiple complaints surface with HR being called out in them. So if you yourself or somebody on your team is being listed as part of the problem, it's just, I would urge you to think about it this way. It's not even, shouldn't even be an ego thing. At that point, you're doing what's best for the business. Let's have an outside neutral party come and take a look at this, or come help us assess this, or uh, just because that messaging goes so much farther than you realize, and it's really the only way to show good faith. Effort was being put towards it anyway, right? So, um, I know that we take our job so seriously, and it might hurt our feelings, and we are quick to say like, hey, that wasn't even me, or I'm not I'm not the guilty party here. But at the end of the day, if we're doing our job well, and this is the sticky part about HR, but if we're doing our job well, we're doing it confidentially. That means everybody in the business has no idea what we're really doing when we conduct a sticky, messy termination, right? They don't know if we're doing it well, right? So they're left with a lot of questions and maybe assumptions. But at the end of the day, if neutrality is in question, or if HR themselves are being alleged part of the issue, without a doubt, hire somebody, start interviewing fractionals that might be able to assist, and bring somebody in that's neutral, that's trained, that is an expert in this area, that can give you a second look. Because if it does go to legal steps, that's the first thing they're going to ask is, what did you do? It's not about the charges that were brought always. It's about how the employer handled it. So, um, trust me when I say that it's always best to just give it the benefit of the doubt, have somebody neutral come and take a look and document and assess the findings, so that you feel good about next steps. And then you can reintroduce yourself into the process or whatever. Another great example is an executive is accused of misconduct, and this can be tricky, right? And I'm sure all of you have seen it. Um, and when your handling of it could create the look of bias because you are an employee of the company, um, there's going to be like standard assumptions that are going to come with that. Um, but a conflict of, in any time, a conflict of interest or it could create a strained future working relationship with them. Because you have to remember, if you're an employee of an organization, the the assumption is that you are one working for the organization, but your job is to create that long-standing uh, relationship with the organization. Your job is to make sure that things stay steady. And so when there is a spike in activity, or a big thing breaks out, or something happens, it really kind of serves you best to hire that out so that you can continue to maintain that stable representation. I know I wish I would have had someone like myself for ugly terminations, because when the people of the organization see me involved in something like that, then their level of trust in me can diminish if they liked that person. The thing is they obviously don't know the 6 offenses that led to the termination. But again, if we're doing it well, our job's well, we're confidential. They don't know and they won't know. But at the end of the day, my job is to create trust and consistency and support and be a reliable resource to them. And if they don't any longer see me in that regard, then how effective am I at my job? So there have been a few times I've had to fall on my own sword. Once I conduct a big termination or something hairy, I can tell within the organization that I'm not going to be real effective there just because their perception of me is is no longer that consistent, reliable, trusted resource. So, isn't HR fun?
I
Um,
think Chad, excuse me, I think Chad made a good comment in the chat about transparency and accountability, because that is directly related to earning trust. And, I think to your point, Rhiannon, that's the number one thing that is most important for HR leaders, because if you don't have trust from the people in your organization, you just can't be effective, right? And so you have to balance the confidentiality piece of it with the transparency and accountability piece.
but it's tough in HR because they're really, how transparent do you want to be about what people are doing that is against the rules and how you're having to handle it? I mean, it's just tricky in HR. So yeah. Anyway, so the other piece is um you might want to consider hiring out when you have repeated claims. So maybe an already investigated internally situation, grievance, something that comes across your desk. And I was going to use Michelle. She's not here, but she's serving a client right now who received a claim of harassment and discrimination. And they had already investigated internally. And then she reached out to me because they wanted to now hire someone neutral, unbiased, outside experienced party to conduct that investigation so that they, honoring their commitment to, um, you know, a very quick turnaround on an investigation and making sure that it's done in good faith. So that these are prime times when it benefits you to look outside of your organization to hire resources to help you, you know, navigate something. Another time is when like a situation, allegation, termination, offense, that could or has triggered any kind of litigation. That's when you want to hire outside. And, maybe it's someone like myself, maybe it's someone with more of a legal background, depending on what you're dealing with. But don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it because, I've seen more times than I can count um, when things go really sideways, get really ugly. And it's so sad to look back because it all could have been mitigated so easily had they just, brought in the right kind of service provider, the right kind of expert to help them navigate, you know. Um, and then there are times too that a CEO needs confidential guidance. And, one thing I'll say is serving as, director of HR and partnering so closely with your executive team, there's times where I would be saying something that just was not being heard. Because, we work really closely together. Maybe they learned to drown out my voice. I don't know. But there's a lot of power when you bring in somebody that they regard highly. They might be saying the same exact thing you have been saying, but now it's all of a sudden a great idea. And, you know, when you look at it, choose your battles because there are times that that has happened to me. Heck, that happens with my spouse, right? But it's okay because at the end of the day, you're looking out for what's best for your organization. And if whatever construed or conspired help them to see really the best path forward, great. So one of the things that I do is I lead strategy sessions. So I had somebody reach out and he said, my CEO is just not hearing me. We're really having a struggle about turnaround time, about making decisions, and I just need help. So he got support. I came in for a strategy session and basically just led a discussion about the business overall, about where they were going, and then got to step into some specific things about how they work. And it turns out the executive needs time to process, and they were taking 2 weeks on average to make decisions. The HR person was saying, I don't have that kind of time. We got to make decisions and we got to move faster. So we were able to just talk that through. And it was the CEO that gave me a great review on Google, I think, um, because he just mentioned I never would have like thought about things the way that you did had you not come in and talked to us. So, um, I say at the end of the day, find what it is that would benefit you and your long-standing relationship with your executive team, because that's what's critical. And as far removed as from your ego as you can be, that's what's probably best for the organization anyway. Um, don't be afraid to utilize those resources. So when the everyday suddenly turns into leadership level risk decisions, those are the times that you want to utilize outside expertise. Okay, and I think we already kind of talked through our other little quiz question. But does anybody have any stories to share or times that you utilized fractional HR to assist you? Or maybe you served as fractional HR? Do you have any glowing stories you'd like to share?
I actually, as the interim fractional HR leader at the company that I'm currently with right now,
Yeah.
in one of the little phone booths. When I started with them back in August, this client who I'm working to transition out, so we bring in full time again, but quickly realized that the scope that they needed was going to be far more than I would be able to provide in a short term. So it actually brought in fractional recruiting help. I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with Rhiannon, who's kind of a big part of the fractional community. She was able to step in and provide
And what's her
fractional
name?
Brannon Skillern. She's fantastic, but I was able to tap her and say, I need to do the HR side of things here. Would you be willing to step in and provide fractional recruiting support? So together they had, instead of a fully staffed HR team, they had, we had some direct line reports, but together the two of us managed the fractional HR and fractional recruiting side of the coin. So
Perfect.
that worked out nicely. Very grateful
Wonderful.
for that. Would have drowned otherwise.
Yes. And as someone who has 15 years of experience doing recruitment, it is a time taker, isn't it? So,
Oh yeah. Hmm.
and when it comes to your time, your best use, right, for serving that client or serving your organization, whatever the case may be, you really do have to assess, how is my time best utilized? And sometimes that means hiring outside expertise to help drive it home. So I love it.
Amen.
Success story.
Hmm.
Any other stories to share? Okay, I will move on. So, something to kind of think about is when you are at the helm handling everything internally, when you do need to conduct something like an investigation, it can become rushed or more informal than it maybe should be. Documentation, communications are less thorough, or you might be a little more incomplete as as it could be. Because why? Because we have a million other things going on. And sometimes that just feels like now everything else stops so that I can conduct this investigation. Um, there's times when it makes sense to just hire it out. Um, Plus, I would say there's a different vibe that comes from having an outside investigator come in. And if you do have legitimate concerns about whatever the claim or allegation was, um, but there's times when I know that because I've been brought in, uh, employees speak a lot more freely to me than they probably would to their supervisor or an HR colleague. Plus, there's, you know, assumptions being made by the employees that HR is there to serve the company. Legal courts kind of see it the same way, right? So there's just times, I mean, everything's worth kind of balancing out. It's a decision not to be made lightly, There's always cost involved and everything else, but long term, what is best for the organization? It's definitely a question worth asking. Executive pressure can influence outcomes a little more easily if you're handling everything yourself. Um, I recall that on several occasions, just being kind of pressured to either not do something or to do something or to look past something if you don't if you're just juggling and trying to do everything yourself. So and then over time, HR credibility can erode if the team isn't seeing the HR organization as being as as upstanding as it should be. And the results, obviously, lawsuits, settlements, burned out HR, and unfortunately, a loss of trust across the organization in worst case scenario. But it's all a reputational game for sure because the way we represent ourselves, the way we handle concerns, the way we handle the employees, that's everything. And why fractional HR? Doing your job, balancing the strategic and the daily duties with complex employment laws, compliance requirements, people management, both your leadership team and the employees. With the support of fractional HR, you gain executive level expertise and best practices. You get help when and where you need it most. And we safeguard your responsibilities, your reputation, and support your initiatives, empowering you to do all the things that you do best in leading your organization. So it really can be seen as a team dynamic for sure, if you find the right one. And the real value to HR teams is fractional HR gives you executive level strategic thinking or an executive level strategic thinking partner, depending on what you are hiring them to help you with. It gives you someone external who can present leadership with maybe the hard truths that you don't feel are going to come, you know, to them well from you. So I've been brought in to do that kind of work too, because again, you're trying to salvage and maintain that long-standing relationship, so that you can, you know, journey through the next 5 years with that organization, right? So sometimes it makes sense to bring somebody else in that you know that they're going to take it better from somebody else who maybe has more years of experience, more experience in their industry, um, what have you. And then fractional HR also gives you credibility with your employees and sometimes attorneys, depending on whatever is going on. Um, and then interim leadership when holes or needs arise. Um, Sometimes a neutral investigator. Sometimes it gives you time to focus on your core role and maintaining your long-standing relationships. It gives you opportunities to learn on the job from the fractional, to be coached for professional development, and, interactive HR strategy sessions. I kind of mentioned it earlier, designed to lead tough conversations, to maybe pull the whole team together or the whole organization. Um, and confidential consultations for sensitive issues, definitely worth a discussion. And it's important to know we don't replace HR, we protect and we strengthen it. So that is that. And if anybody's interested in complimentary consultation, or if you know of somebody who is in need of some assistance, don't hesitate to scan that QR code and then schedule time with me.
Well, thank you so much, Rhiannon. I think it's great to have so many HR practitioners here in the HR Rebels community that, you can all brainstorm together as well. I think that, with the group that we have on today's call, which is a big mix of lots of different experience, there's lots of great nuggets to take away from all of the things you said, whether you're an in-house or you're a contractor right now, right? And you're thinking about, what can I do personally in this role? What do I need help with? Whichever side of the coin you may be approaching it from. So I really appreciate all that perspective.
Good.
Anybody else
It,
have any questions for Rhiannon?
yeah, we've got 9 minutes.
Rihanna, I have a question, and I think it probably goes along the lines of what Dara is asking on the chat. And that has to do more with, in your experience, how do you structure retainers in a way that it doesn't pull you away from your focus, right? And then you don't find yourself like, trying to scramble or like make sure that you're still becoming profitable. And if you need to add additional support, you can still do it comfortably. If you have any insight on that. I'm not sure if it's the same question as Dara on the chat, but I will be curious if you can share.
So you're asking how to structure retainer agreements?
Or not, I mean, on like on a big detail, but just like a very broadly, what are the things that you have found useful as you become fractional? And the reason why I'm asking is just when I started to venture on myself and I was doing like projects here and there, I was gonna start working with a company. And I noticed that, I was gonna do, let's say, 10 hours per week, right? but the 10 hours per week was not something defined. It was not just employee relations issues, it was just like general HR work. And so, do you find yourself that when you are creating retainers for clients, do you have to define exactly the level of support that you're going to give so you don't find yourself later on in hot waters, trying to make sure that the relationship doesn't get a little bit messy along the way?
Yeah, I would definitely advise on mapping out scope, um, because, and the other piece of that is, as you guys know, it usually comes in hand with a lot of education for the executives that are hiring you. Because I referenced it earlier, but I think a lot of executive teams just don't quite realize what all is involved. And so I think it's really clear to, in your consultation with them, to get very clear on what it is that they're really looking for, and then what is it that you actually provide. And when it is something that I don't provide, I like to make nice, warm introductions to somebody that does do what they are looking for. So by the way, I would love to connect with anybody who serves clients, and reach out on LinkedIn, connect, and tell me your niches, your specialties, because as I said, there are a lot of facets to HR, and I am not great at all of them. And I love to pull in partners when needed, so that we can do what's right for the client. Um, so, but yes, mapping out scope, really diving in and figuring out what it is that they need. Sometimes what they want is different. But navigating those conversations very carefully so that you can assess how much, you know, labor, how much, if you do it based on time, however you're going to structure your agreement with them.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I hope this was helpful. It's mostly consultants on the call today, huh? So hopefully it was helpful from both angles. Any other questions that came in?
Nope, just some rebel chatting. Hi, Scott.
Cool.
Good to see you.
Well,
Good.
I have a curiosity question.
Yeah, go for it.
Um, although I have some expertise in the field, I've grown increasingly concerned about the unionization, organization, labor issues facing companies. Historically, we've virtually inversed the percentages of organizational drives and members within the public sector and the private sector,
Yeah.
leaving the private sector with virtually no experience at all, including large organizations who can hire anybody they want to help them. But what have you seen? Has anybody seen an increase in that other than large organizations because they're an easy target?
So what is exactly is your question? Seeing the higher union activity?
Correct, within the private sector, smaller companies or whatever. Whatever have you observed it? What have you noticed?
I mean, I know personally, I see what gets a little news coverage, and depending on what news sources you follow and what echo chambers you may be a part of, you may see more or less than that. But I think this is a really good question, John, and an interesting topic that we could probably have a whole Rebels meeting about. So if that's something that you're interested in, I think, you and Michelle and I should connect on that, and maybe we can put something together and see where the rest of the community weighs in.
Because I'd love to attend it and listen in
Yeah.
because it is not a specialty of mine, but I think that in times of pressure like we're in right now, that's when we see more involvement and engagement and activity on that front. So I would I would think that it is on the rise.
I would think of that unhappy people give rise to protecting themselves and wanting representation and a voice.
Yep.
And that comes down to culture and the employer and etc. We all
Yeah.
see the headlines about school districts or Starbucks or Amazon or whatever, and those are huge, easy targets. But it's also happening within the smaller private sector businesses, even nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just something I thought I'd throw out there. It wasn't um, a push to have a session, but I think anybody who is in HR needs to at least have some idea of what's happening within the union space.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd love to learn more about that as well. And so, John, I encourage you to share your comments on LinkedIn, and maybe we can engage some more rebels in that conversation. And I think that there's a lot to uncover there for sure.
Yeah, I would like if that ends up being a topic that HR Rebels wants to do, I'll pull in a few other people who work in the public sector specifically, as well as the private sector, uh, engaged in how to prevent it to begin with.
Yeah. Well,
Ooh,
great. Well, thank you
I
so
think
much.
that would be a great discussion. Yeah.
Agreed. Thank you. Well, we're right at the top of the hour, so I want to make sure to give everybody's time, give you everybody back your time. Thank you again, Rhiannon, so much for your
Yep.
presentation. I know I personally learned a lot, and I think there are a lot of great nuggets there for everybody to take away. On
Good.
behalf of Michelle, I want to thank everybody for being part of this community, and recognize our sponsors as well. And so if any of you are working with organizations that you think sponsorship would be a good path for them, you know how to get in touch with us. And then lastly, our next meeting is March 11th. So we will not be meeting next week. Michelle is presenting live at a conference in Atlanta called the HR in the Age of AI conference. And so we're really excited about that. Hope to get that on video so we can share it with you all. But then we'll be back on March 11th with Melissa Doman, and she's going to talk about mental health in the workplace, especially for leadership. We've got a book giveaway. And so we'll be really excited to see everybody in a couple of weeks.
Wonderful.
All
Thank you.
right.
Great.
Thank
Thanks,
you
Rhiannon.
all.
Thanks, Rachel.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.